Welcome back to Account Management Secrets. My guest today is Jim Richmond, the Chief Customer Officer at Smartling. Jim has spent more than 25 years leading customer teams at high-growth SaaS companies in the $50 to $250 million range. He's led customer success, account management, support, and professional services. And so he brings a very clear point of view on customer value, risk, and what great looks like in post-sales. In today's conversation, we get into how Jim thinks about discovery as a skill and not just a script, why customer centricity doesn't mean that you have to be a doormat that gets walked all over, how his company, Smartling, frames value around savings, risk reduction, and outcomes, and why GRR, gross revenue retention, is his North Star. You know, we also talk about something that I don't hear enough leaders say out loud, which is we've got to celebrate bad news early. And so Jim shares with us the systems that he has in place to surface risk before it becomes a big deal, and how he trains his teams to act as guides, not just the hero, but guides in their customers' stories. So let's get into it with Jim Richmond. I hope you enjoy my conversation with him here on Account Management Secrets. If you're an account manager, you already know this. You're the one keeping the business running. You own the client relationships, drive the revenue, and solve the tough problems for your customers. But here's the challenge. Most companies don't give account managers the training or recognition they deserve. That's what you'll get here on the Account Management Secrets podcast. I'm Alex Raymond, and after working with thousands of account managers, I know what separates the best from the rest. In this show, we cover exactly what you need to succeed: handling tough client conversations, driving renewals and upsells with confidence, and proving your value every single day. There's no fluff, no outdated sales tactics, just real practical strategies you can use right now to grow your accounts and build a successful career. If that sounds like what you've been looking for, hit subscribe and let's get into it. Hey, Jim, great to see you. Thanks for joining me.
Alex, great to see you. Thanks for having me. A pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's a big deal. We're kicking off a new year, and I love to have chief customer officers on the show to talk about how do we set ourselves up for success in 2026. So let's just dive straight in. Tell me what you're thinking about with the new year here. What are you thinking about to help set your team and your customers up for a great 2026?
Yeah, I mean, happy 26. I hope you had a great break. And you know, it's a new year. So what have you done for me lately? The past doesn't matter anymore, and it's all about what's going to happen in the future. What I've been working on with my lieutenants and the way that we're attacking things is, first of all, continuous skill refreshment, right? Especially in the AI marketplace where Smartly exists, the technology, the use cases are changing so rapidly that we're constantly sort of pushing and adjusting our training agenda with our folks. And that's kind of the intersection of technology, but also soft skills. We're going to work a lot on discovery this year, on really getting deeper with our customers and understanding more about why did they buy us. Like, you know, we want to upend the traditional QBR motion and have it be not about what we did, but about what they did with our assistance. There's a lot more I could talk about with customer centricity beyond just the success motions, right? There's similar motions happening in professional services and product support as well. But across all those, the underpinning thing that I'm constantly working on getting people to focus on more is customer value creation, right? I'm much less worried about the pace of renewals and about the revenue we're producing than I am about the savings that we're generating and the risk that we're removing from our customers' businesses, right? Ultimately, those are the things that are going to make my company prosperous. Is the rising tide lifts all boats, right? If I'm valuable for my customers, then everything will be fine.
So looking at coming into the year, you're saying discovery is important because it allows us to understand our customers more deeply and what they bought, why they bought, what's going on in their world. Customer centricity is, of course, part of that. And then the third one you said is value creation, which is making sure that we're delivering what we sold. Did I get that right?
Yes. And making sure our customers understand the value that we're delivering too. right? I think
Yes.
sometimes you're close to it when it's on your own desk every day and you stop seeing things. And so being top of mind for them that we're actually generating tremendous savings and risk reduction day over day is I want to make sure they know that.
That is a very big deal. And I've seen a lot of teams where just too often we keep our cards too close to our vest and we don't remind the customer, like constantly tell them, here's all the great things we've done for you. Don't forget, we're here. Because partly the baseline keeps rising in the customer's brain, right? Like, so in their mind, they're like, hey, we already solved this problem. Boom, that's a new baseline. We already solved the next problem. That's a new baseline. You've got to constantly be there reminding them of all the things you're doing them for them, not even just now, but sometimes in the past, so they can see that.
And I would argue, I want to remind them of the great things that they were able to do while I was holding their coat.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want it to be as much about me as it is about them and their outcome.
Yeah. So how do you go about that then? Let's dig into that piece. So customer value creation. What are you thinking about? How are you training the team? How are you guys changing how you talk to customers, interact with customers? What sort of artifacts are you bringing to these conversations? Like, what does that look like?
Well, let me give you a little context first. So Smartling is an AI software company. We've been around since 2009, and we have developed an artificial intelligence for translation and localization.
Nice.
And our goal is to make it dramatically less expensive and risk-free and rapid to address your customers or your constituents or whoever, your stakeholders, in their native language that they're most comfortable with.
Awesome product, awesome market. You guys have product market fit, growing quickly, doing well.
It's simply an intuitive truth, right? That people buy more and feel more comfortable engaging with a company in their native language, right? It's true for me. It's true for everybody. And so we want to, and historically that was like a really expensive, time-consuming, complicated thing. You had to do a lot of research and figure out exactly which language pairs you wanted to do. And if you don't speak Nepalese, like how do you know that you're getting good output and all that kind of stuff? Like and then you have to pay all these linguists and do all this work, and it takes a long time. And so with the machine intelligence that we've built, it dramatically removes the amount of effort, the turnaround time, and the cost associated with localizing in any language set you want. And so with that context set, the way we think about value creation for our customers is what markets were we able to unlock on your behalf, right? So there's revenue production for our customers. There's also cost removal, right? It used to be terribly expensive to have linguists on staff or to use a third-party language agency or something like that, and it used to take a lot of time. So those, and then the last thing I'll mention is risk, right? How do you really know the quality of the translations that you're getting? And so those are the three big levers that we think about of turnaround time and quality, and then cost per word. But what that unlocks for our customers varies a fair amount from one use case to another, right? For a lot of our government customers, it's all about citizen effort, for example, or just engagement. For our e-commerce customers, right, it's a lot more about conversion and that kind of stuff. There's brand awareness. There are a few levers there, but it's pretty different from one place to another. And so, just circling back to that concept of discovery, Alex, like what we're after is we want our folks to be intellectually curious about what our customers are doing and how they're using the suite of capabilities that we unlock for them, and understanding the levers that are important to them. And you get surprised. It's pretty different from place to place, even though we're doing, generally speaking, the same thing for a lot of folks.
And how hard is it to get your customer to define and track value from their point of view? So it's you do this for a living, right? So your team walks in, you got everything all sorted out, the dashboards and the tables and the case studies and the references and so on. But I've been in these meetings where people turn around and say to the customer, what does value mean to you? And you just get some really abstract answer, or the customer doesn't really know, and so they're kind of bouncing around. How do you get them to say, yes, those are the things I care about. Yes, I'm tracking with you in terms of our definition of these, and we're able to show progress in the right direction and stuff like that. So, like, what do the mechanics look like there?
Yeah, great question. And I think that that's why I don't think we're going to see like enterprise software level CSMs be automated away anytime soon, because it's not a one size fits all approach, right? There's a fair amount of, like I said, intellectual curiosity that you need to have in order to get from here to there, because it varies a lot based on industry, but also on the level of sophistication of the particular customer that you're working with. And so you have to, it's a give and take, an ebb and flow that you have to develop with them. But first and foremost, you have to show up and be there, right? You have to actually have these conversations and genuinely care about them enough to not just auto renew them year over year, but to really dig in and be there and want to understand their business. So that's like, I don't want to overlook that important step of straight up engagement and caring about your customer outcomes. After that, I think it's helpful to have a hypothesis for us to sit down and say, here's how we think about value, right? The three levers that we talked about. And then generally, like at that point in the conversation, I like to stop and say, does this feel right to you? Like, do you care about these numbers? Can you share with me a little bit about your comp plan or what your boss is worried about? I see that you're worried about these things from your latest SEC filing, et cetera, and start having that back and forth. And then the third thing that I'll say is turning that into a conversation, right? So we have a hypothesis. We know that it's wrong, right? It's a guess based on written by an outsider, but that's actually really engaging, right? People love correcting and being the expert about something. And so I'm totally good with being completely off the mark with my hypothesis the first time around. And then, but ultimately we do need to have a perspective, right? We are the experts. We are the machine learning and linguistic asset experts in the room. And so we also want to have a hand in guiding them. And that's a big part of customer centricity for us, is this idea of being the customer's guide as opposed to being a vendor. And that's in the AI marketplace, where things are really evolving quite rapidly. It's not a fair ask of a lot of our customers to stay on top of which of the language models is the best, and what is a reasonable turnaround time, and what is a reasonable cost per word from German to Afrikaans, and all that stuff. Like, it's not their job to know those things. It's our job to be able to guide them and help them. And so that's something I'm constantly talking to my team about is we're not Luke Skywalker.
You're not Luke Skywalker. Who are you then?
We're Obi-Wan Kenobi. Maybe Yoda, right? Like the customer is Luke Skywalker, right? They're the center of the story, and we're just the guide, the person with a little more knowledge who's there to help them along on their journey. And it's kind of hard, right? It's almost everybody's default setting is to be the main character in their story. Like, you get up in the morning.
Well, no, I mean, you're putting words to some very important ideas here. So let me just recap these, because
Please, yeah.
These are very important for everyone to be ingesting. The first is you were talking about curiosity, and then you were talking about empathy, and empathy as the strategy to get your customer to open up and talk more, because you need to actually care. I call this relentless curiosity. Right? Yeah. So I've got my new book. It's called The Growth Department. It's coming out in a couple of weeks. It has a whole chapter on relentless curiosity, which is exactly this idea.
Can't wait to get a copy. Are you going to send me one?
Yeah, totally. And so I will. You will get a copy. I mean, fingers crossed, it's coming out on the schedule that I'm going to hit really soon. And the idea is, you don't take the first answer as the truth, right? You got to keep going. If you're what's the why behind the why, or what's actually going on here, and ask thought-provoking questions that are actually going to get the customer to answer, because customers already have all their defenses up, right? When it comes to traditional discovery, like, they know what you're going to ask them, and they've got their one-liner, and they hope you just nod, take notes, and move on, right? And our job is to kind of crack through that and say, what's actually happening here? How can I be of help? But then what you said was, it's a very important distinction about the relationship, what I heard, Jim. So I want to see if I got this right, and if you agree.
Go ahead.
Once I understand what the customer wants, I'm not just this like doormat that they're walking all over. They say jump, and we say how high, and stuff like that. That's not the point. You use the word guide. And what that means to me is, we're bringing our expertise to bear. So we're the experts in solving the problem that the customer has. In your case, it's translating stuff from language A to language B. So you're experts in that. You know all about it. You can guide your customers step by step. You can show them the way. You can anticipate friction points or problems or things that are going to come up. You can help them avoid some pitfalls and so on. And so you are guiding them. They're the hero because they're the ones delivering the project internally, but you are there like a Sherpa almost, right? Like going along with them.
Absolutely.
And making sure that they are successful. And the reason that that's important is I think a lot of people get conflated in their mind this idea about customer centricity. Customer centricity does not mean that we do whatever the customer says whenever they say it. It does not mean that the customer is always the one with the, always right or whatever. It means we are working with them to solve a problem that they've identified that's important to their business. And we're going to bring our best selves, in this case, us as a guide, in order to help them. How does that resonate with you?
100%. When you think about the most important partners in your life, maybe it's your spouse or a parent or do they always agree with everything you say? No, they challenge you, right? And getting through that conflict and being challenged to do better is exactly what we want to do with that's the relationship and the trust that we want to develop with our customers as well. Do you have it on day zero? No, trust is accumulated over time through shared experiences. But the idea of being able to say, I hear what you're saying and I understand why you're asking for that. Let me tell you why I have a better idea or a different approach that I think is going to serve you better is so powerful and so valuable to our customers, but requires that depth of knowledge that you can only get through disciplined discovery over time. And would you call it relentless curiosity? I call it intellectual curiosity.
Relentless curiosity. That's the word. Now, Jim, you mentioned that you're fairly new to Smartling. And one of your focus areas for this year is skill building. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to know, how did you show up when you first started at the company as the chief customer officer? Like, what did you do? What was your process? How did you get up to speed on everything from the company to the culture to the behaviors and processes of the customer success and account management teams? Like, help us understand what that looked like, because I want to hear, what's it like to show up at a brand new company, take over. You've got a team of about 50 people, I believe. So to take over a sizable team with a sizable book of business, how do you start to, know which way is up when you join a new company like that?
Sure. I'm so energized in this new role because there's so much potential ahead of us at this company. Like, by far, the largest problems that we're dealing with are growth problems, which I love. I've been in the software industry for 25 plus years now, and I've worked.
Because you've been with Reich, you've been with Sprinkler, you've been with Medallia. Mm-hmm. Those are big, well-known companies.
Yeah, and I'm proud of the exits we've achieved and the growth that those companies were able to unlock for their customers and for their investors. And the same potential with multiples more exists here at Smartling. So it's really energizing and fun to be here. I think that one of the things I've focused on is systems thinking and how do we build the right structures that empower this growth to keep going, right? And to do it in a way that's not disconnected, that doesn't jostle our customers, that just allows us to scale and kind of keep that going. And so I'm drawing a lot on like what we did at Sprinkler back in the late 2010s and early 2020s. That was a really fun ride through that growth phase. And I learned a lot from the mentors that I worked with there. And one of the main things is this going to work when we're 4 times our size? Is this particular approval process, or is this order form template or whatever else, is it going to work when we're 4 times our size? Because if it's not, I don't want to build it right now. It's just like, let's go back to the drawing board and think about it again. I'm constantly saying to the team when we sit down, I want everybody to look around at all the faces on this Zoom. This is the smallest we're ever going to be. Mm-hmm. And a third of the people in this room, right, are relatively new joiners. And so we need to minimize our use of acronyms and be really thoughtful about how we speak and the level of knowledge of everybody in the room so that we can bring everybody along with us. And that's not a temporary way of thinking, right? We're structuring this for long-term steady growth. And so this is the new way that we act and that we operate. In terms of getting to know the organization and understanding the state of things, I think that the first thing that I'll say is that I'm blessed with a really great team of first line leaders in this organization. And more importantly, the existing culture here is phenomenal. The people really deeply care about our customers. They like what we're doing. They can tell, as I can, that it's an unambiguously good service that we're delivering. Like, I don't think there's any downside in people understanding one another better. Like, that's just positive across the board. And that resonates. Like people feel that way. And I think that on the behalf of our employees and our customer engagement organization, that is a critical enabler for great outcomes and experiences for our customers, and it cannot be faked, right? Like either you feel that way or you don't. And so I'm working really hard to preserve that and make that part of our culture, while also being set up to grow and have high standards and high accountability and all the things that you need in order to keep this trajectory going. So that means instead of like, if we talked a lot about customer centricity and kind of looking outwards at the customer base, looking inwards and managing growth as an organization and as an administrator. It's kind of the same thing though. Like, I have to step out and not be the main character in my story as a leader. I want to put myself in the shoes of one of my frontline customer support folks, and what are their outcomes? Like, who is the professional they want to grow into? What are their aspirations? What's your day-to-day like? How are you being judged fairly? Are you being compensated fairly? Like, I want to do the same thing with the folks on the team who are doing harder jobs than I am, right? In terms of like dealing with tickets all day and doing complicated configuration, and making sure that their incentives and outcomes are aligned with what inspires them.
And when you talk about standards there, that's I was thinking in my head, like, how are you maintaining a culture of performance? Because when you grow, so first, Smartling's had a certain amount of success. Okay, great. That gets brought into the culture. As you grow, you're bringing on new people. You need to be establishing, here are our performance standards. Here's what we expect of the team. Here's the this very small handful of metrics that are our North Star, right? Or maybe it's only one. So how do you think about that? Like, what's your North Star metric? How do you get the whole team to rally around it? Tell us about those mechanics.
Our North Star metric is gross revenue retention.
Okay.
And I have a Post-it note on the wall in front of my desk. I'm looking at it right now. It says only bad news, because when you can't exceed 100% gross retention, right, it's the number only goes down from there. And so we have a culture of really celebrating bad news as long as it's fresh. Of like, I want everybody to feel okay about letting us know that there's a risk or a challenge, right? So that we can rally around that and go attack it. So that's the primary one. Immediately behind that is net revenue retention. We have to be great partners to our sales organization. Like, they're the tip of the spear and make the rest of what we do possible. And so it's really important for us to work closely with them to pass some high quality leads when they exist, to be a good partner in that way. And then the third North Star metric that I have is employee NPS.
Okay.
Great work is done by highly engaged, highly motivated people who feel like they belong. And so it's very important to me that we measure that and we track that progress over time.
You're the second person in two podcasts, second person this month to talk about gross revenue retention and net revenue retention. So the reason that gross GRR is more important to you is because your team doesn't do expansion. Is that right?
We work on renewals. We will absolutely do expansions. Like, we will source that. Generally speaking, we work in concert with the seller to drive those expansions and make them happen. So there's a partnership between sales and customer engagement.
Tell us about the bad news early thing. What's that all about?
I don't like surprises as a person and as a professional. And so I want people to feel comfortable bringing up the challenges that they're seeing, the risk that they're seeing in the book of business, the escalation that they got or a difficult ticket that they don't know how to solve. I don't want those things to be swept under the rug where they tend to fester and accumulate mold and everything else. I want them to be out in the daylight so that we can attack them and change the system and get better. And so I think the best way to do that is to not be scary when someone has bad news, but to give them a hug, right? High five them. Like, yes, you found some new risk. This is exciting. This is an opportunity for us to get 1% better. How do we go do that? Like, let's roll up our sleeves and get at it. You don't, when you berate people or you sigh and you push your hair back or you slump at your desk or whatever, when something bad happens, that has the opposite effect, right? It discourages people from talking about the challenges that they're feeling. And that's not what I'm here to do, right? I'm a servant leader. I'm here to remove obstacles for people so that they can accomplish their goals.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's fantastic. And when you frame it as risk, then you can link it even more down to the work that the account management team is doing every day. And what I mean by that is, we've had a bunch of people on this podcast. So I'm thinking of Josh Abdullah at Asana and Lisa Honecker at Actable. And they were both telling me about the systems that they run to basically manage risk, get a hold of like, what are all the reasons that, things are blowing up out there? And the better you get at seeing all that stuff, then you're able to deliver on your role, right? Like your job is to keep customers, grow customers, and no surprises along the way. Like that's the definition of the job. And so in this case, you're saying surface the stuff that could be an issue. Hopefully we get to the point where we practice it enough that we're surfacing things before the bad news actually hits, right? Meaning we're able to see stuff coming and then whatever action is might be required.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what does that look like? Are you doing a risk register? Do you have risk meetings? Do you have categories for this stuff?
We're continuing to evolve at that, right? We have a pretty sophisticated risk scoring algorithm that's broadly multivariate and automated, that's based on a bunch of different factors that we know are correlated with retention over time.
Tell us more. Say more.
It's got, there's a little bit of secret sauce to it. It's got, I don't know, but like more than a dozen factors in it around how much traffic are you using or is going through our platform? How deeply integrated are we into your other systems? How frequently are you interacting with us? How frequently are we interacting with you? Obviously, all the stuff around product quality and ticket volume and all that stuff. And so there's a bunch of different factors that we look at and track. I think, and I like that because it kind of removes bias, right? Like the machine says this account's at risk or it's not. And there's no ignoring it. Like, let's unpack it and understand why and talk about those. But there's also this, I never want to discount the stomach ache factor. You ever have a conversation with a customer and it just like, you don't feel right afterwards? Like,
yeah, you just kind of know, you just kind of have a sense. Yeah, sure. Definitely.
And so I don't want to discount that. And that's why I'm still pressing on my success folks to get on the road and go meet people in person and have these real human conversations, because I don't think there's a substitute for identifying risk in that way either. And then the third way that we're developing and still working on is sort of a unified measure of the value, the actual business value we're delivering for them. So net of the dozen factors and all that kind of stuff, are we doing valuable stuff on behalf of our customers? Like, do they value the translations that we're delivering for them? In what way? And to be able to measure that in a very consistent way across a pretty broad customer base is a challenge, but I think is the right one. Like, if we can tell that our price per word is too high in a given account, like, let's go have that conversation and say, how do we push more content through the platform on your behalf to bring that cost down and to bring engagement with your customers up?
Got it. Okay. So those are all powerful ways to do it. What else are you thinking of?
The other reason that we celebrate bad news, once we've identified a risk, is because those tend to be crucible moments for customers when something has gone wrong, or maybe we've made a mistake. I don't know. The way you respond to that, the way you make the customer feel and how you react to them and work on making it right or whatever needs to be done is a defining moment in a relationship with a customer. And when things go wrong, like, okay, I don't want things to go wrong, but when they do, like, this is a way for us to flip them from a detractor all the way up to a promoter. And those are exciting moments. Like, that's a place to really apply attention and effort and dig in. And it's something that I like to get involved in, because as an individual contributor, you might have a book of a couple dozen accounts or something like that. At least at this company, those escalations don't happen very often, right? Things tend to work, and we are pretty valuable. And so an individual contributor has relatively few of those, has relatively little exposure to those kinds of events in a year-over-year basis. When they boil up to my VP of success or me, like, I try and be involved and aware of all of them. And so for me, it's a much more like, I want to engage there because I know the playbook for like how do we make them go from sort of upset to feeling really cared about.
So what's your playbook when the shit hits the fan?
I think we start with curiosity rather than judgment. Why did this happen? What was the actual impact? What actually happened, right? Because a lot of times when feelings get involved, the water gets a little muddy about whose fault something is or what actually occurred. And so I try to break things down as plain and black and white as they can be, of what failed, who did what, and what was the encounter. I don't want to take more blame than I need to. I want everybody to feel treated fairly and transparently. And so we start with a lot of curiosity and sort of get to that ground truth of like, what is the situation and where are we?
Yeah, like, I mean, what would a video camera say? Like, what would a video camera have recorded?
Yeah. Let's look at the surveillance footage, right? Yeah. Let's read the logs. So I want that ground truth and that common shared understanding. That's the foundation that we can work upon. And then I want to get really curious about the impact of the challenge, right? Like, how much is it costing us, or what is the risk that's involved, or whose feelings got hurt, whatever it might be. And then we can start talking about where do we go from here? How do we make this right in a way that is balanced and reciprocal? And I want to make sure that I'm accepting accountability for my portion of the problem, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with, and I'm a humble guy. I don't mind saying, I'm sorry that this happened. This should not have happened. And you deserve better, Mrs. Customer, right? Like, I think there's power to those words of having a little bit of humility around that. And then back to the concept of empathy that we were talking about before is, and I talk about this a lot with the support team, is when something bad happens, the sort of natural knee-jerk reaction, again, me being the main character of my story, is to say, I'm sorry about this outage. I'm escalating it to our head of product. We are going to fix it. It's going to be in the next release. It'll be in 10 days or whatever. I hope it's never that long. But that's kind of the natural reaction. And from the customer standpoint, if you step out of that, if you step out of being Luke Skywalker and into being Obi-Wan, you realize as a customer, I don't really care who your head of product is. I don't care about your release schedule. I don't care about your software design. All I know is I'm experiencing this amount of discomfort. And
Totally.
So I think a much better response and angle to take is to say, I think that you're going to need to continue to live with this for N number of days. How can I work with you to mitigate this discomfort that you're feeling between now and when we have it fixed, right? And that flips the conversation on its head, away from here's the stuff we're doing that you don't care about, to here's how I'm going to help you sort of get through this rough patch and out the other side.
That's powerful stuff. So that's bound to be part of the skills building that you're looking forward to this year, is helping people to have those conversations. I mean, this is really important stuff, because a lot of times the account management and customer success teams are treated as sales but nicer, right? Or sales but less aggressive, and not given any training. So they're just told to sit in the back of the room during the sales training, and fingers crossed they get 25% value out of it or something like that. But you're bringing up real specific things here. So when you look at your skills matrix, or the registry of things that you want a CSM in your company to be doing, what are the biggest gaps that you're seeing right now that you're trying to fill?
Great question. And I don't think it's so much as filling gaps as it is addressing the next stage of our growth, right? We have an AI platform with a lot of interfaces and different ways to hook into existing content management systems and web front ends. There's a lot of subtlety to how these different machine learning models work with different languages, and how we measure quality and prevent hallucinations. And like, there's just so many knobs and levers, which makes it a very versatile, very valuable platform. But it's also technically intense, right? There's work that needs to get done, and right and wrong answers for a lot of it. And so as we continue to grow, the evolution that I'm seeking to drive in the success professionals on the team is away from having to know everything about machine learning and linguistics and linguistic assets and that stuff, to being a relationship builder who is intellectually curious, like we talked about, relentlessly curious, and who is good at escalating, right? The good news is that we have a very capable engineering team. We have an amazing research department. We have a great support team. And so the shift that I want to occur gradually over 2026 is for the CSMs to be less of like a one-man band who can do anything, and more about a professional who is great at maintaining relationships, who is great at uncovering risk, articulating it clearly, setting up what the asks are from the organization to address that risk and unlock more value for the customer.
And by the way, to go back to something that you said earlier, that is how, if you are a enterprise CSM today, or you're an account manager today, that is how you de-risk your career in an age of AI, is by doing exactly what Jim was just saying here, which is become someone who's versatile in the business, someone who understands how to work deeply with customers, how to solve their problems. There's a lot of uncertainty, right? There's a lot of people who are right now a little bit nervous. What's AI going to do to my job? What's AI going to do to this function? How do I stay ahead of it? That's a great, great example. Well, Jim Richmond, thank you for being here. Thank you for giving us the Chief Customer Officer view on 2026. All the best to you and your team out there for the rest of this year.
This is a lot of fun, Alex. Thanks so much, and best wishes with your book. I'm excited to read it when it comes out.
Thank you.